Okay, if everyone could take a seat. Thank you. Thank you to the Madison Drumline. Board members? Board members, come to the table.
Last call, if there are any Boy Scouts in the audience, please come see me at the end of the dais. Thank you.
Should I do it again?
Yep. Wait. Okay, I think they stopped.
Good evening. This January 7, 2006. Thank you very much. There's a lot of enthusiasm in here tonight, which is very exciting. This January 7, 2016 regular meeting number 11 of the Fairfax County School Board will now come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence, and the performance of the national anthem by Churchill Road Elementary School Bobcat Orchestra under the direction of Jacqueline Robertson. That was so beautiful. Thank you. At every one of our meetings, we get further proof of our wonderful arts programs in this county. Thank you, parents, for bringing your kids tonight.
And absolutely, thank you, parents, for allowing us to enjoy the talent of your beautiful children. And I believe the principal at Churchill Road, Don Hutzel, I saw him earlier, so I know Don's around. There he is. Congratulations, Mr. Hutzel. Great.
It's easy to find the ballpark.
Okay, thank you. Item 2.02, certification of closed meeting compliance. In order to comply with Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, it's necessary for the board to certify that since the Fairfax County School Board convened a closed meeting on January 7, 2016, earlier tonight, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the closed meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Moved by Mrs. Schultz, second by Ms. Strauss. All those in favor, raise your hand. It is unanimous. Thank you. Item 2.03, a few announcements before we begin tonight's meeting. If you would like to review a copy of the agenda and any agenda item that is being discussed tonight, that information is on the table by the auditorium entrance. You may access tonight's agenda and related meeting documents by going to the FCPS website, select School Board, and then Upcoming Meetings and Agendas. The meeting is also being streamed live on the FCPS website homepage. Click on Watch School Board Live. Please turn off or silence your cell phone. Mr. Press, do we have any Boy Scouts tonight? Nope. Okay, we have everybody else, just no Boy Scouts tonight. All right, item 3.01, citizen participation. Speakers, this is the time for speakers to come up front if you have signed up. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to not more than 3 minutes. The school board will not hear statements involving issues that have been scheduled for public hearings, such as capital improvement program, budget, and boundaries, or personal attacks on any person. Complaints regarding individual students or school-based employees should be directed to the appropriate school principal or other school official. If the concern is a group concern, please consider appointing a spokesperson, and while the spokesperson is speaking, those in support may stand to show their support. Tonight, 3 citizens have signed up to address the board: Steve Greenberg, George Becerra, and Kimberly Adams. Mr. Greenberg?
Dr. Garza, Chairman Hines, legendary Mr. Press, esteemed school board members. My name is Steve Greenberg. I'm president of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers. I represent outstanding educators in FCPS whose focus is on our students, educating, protecting, and caring for them daily. I will be speaking to the agenda item award of contract running track replacement at Hayfield Secondary School, as well as making some well-deserved public recognitions this evening. The first recognition tonight is to all of these parents and community members who have come out to support our schools, our students, and our teachers. Or if you are with IMFCPS, please give yourselves a round of applause and make some noise. Thank you for being here. We'd also like to welcome our new school board members and encourage them to keep in close contact with their employees and community who know and care so much about FCPS. I'd like to express my deepest gratitude in particular to Ms. Corbett Sanders of Mount Vernon, who has spent countless hours already engaging our members and employees in general. Please know how much we appreciate that you're working so hard and that your time in engaging our employees and getting their perspective is greatly appreciated. In regards to the agenda item, FCFT supports the school board replace the running track at Hayfield Secondary School, as we know the importance of investments in both capital and operational improvements to our system in order to better benefit our students. Your strategic plan values developing the whole person, so we graduate well-rounded, healthy young citizens who will be successful and in turn should value public education as much as these adults in this room. By providing our students with the opportunities that support athletics, the arts, and other ventures, we're investing in their success and happiness now and our community's success in the future. With that said, I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize the first recipient of this year's FCFT President Award, which goes to Dr. Karen Garza. This award is presented annually to leaders who advocate for the employees of FCPS, as our employees are the ones who educate and protect our students daily, dedicated to our community's children. Many of the school board members present here this evening have also received this award in the past, so they understand this is not given out to many and not too often. Thank you for listening to and caring about us, Dr. Garza. We know what that looks like when it's genuine, and we care back. Please know that we return the respect and advocacy you have had and you will continue to have our support. Finally, I'd like to thank our governor for putting public education first in the state budget this year. We will continue to work with him and his staff on the specifics of it to make all of the components good for FCPS. I hope his leadership on this will set a good example for our local leaders and community. I will be speaking this Saturday to the Northern Virginia delegation to the General Assembly, as well as many of these parents here tonight, to support the governor's objectives. To state representatives like Kay Corey, who is offering bills to protect our teachers' due process rights, we appreciate that you too are looking out for our teachers. More on that Saturday. Thank all of you for your time and your commitment to our students. Have a good evening.
Thank you. There are some seats up front. Please feel free to wander down to the front if you'd rather sit. Mr. Becerra?
Good Good evening, Superintendent Garza and school board members. I'm going to switch it up a little bit here. I'm going to talk about the 3 items. First is line of business review. If you guys haven't seen the schedule, the schools are going to present February 26th, the same day as your retreat, and March 29th. So hopefully school board members will be there, and also some of the community members who seem like they want to hear about more budget stuff. That should be around 1 o'clock on that Friday. And the reason I bring up lines of business is as a community, we talk about all services. So the same people that are here tonight, I hope they show up during those, 100 hours of meetings that the Board of Supervisors have, and their schedule is out. So hopefully these citizens also come up to hear about human services, public safety transportation, courts, communications, human resources, revenue. So at the same time, they put the same advocacy to coming down here tonight, hopefully that they're preaching to the choir here, that they can go to the Board of Supervisors. Other dates, first day for Board of Supervisors, January 12th, next week, February 2nd and 16th. The second topic I talked about is the SCIP, Successful Children and Youth Policy Team. For the new members, school board members, if you don't know, please ask your veteran the ones what this is. Dr. Garza, hopefully that in terms of membership that's being raised right now, in terms of finalizing that group, that teachers will be included. As much as you talked about in your press releases about teacher pay, value of teachers, I'd like to hear a direct voice from the teachers. Someone from your STAC team to be on that group. Not FEA, FCFT, or the other one. You choose from that group and it has one representative. I understand that hopefully Ms. Darnat Koufax and Ms. McLaughlin don't have issues with having the teacher voice on there instead of the chief academic officer only. A brand new one, who I don't think knows Fairfax County yet, from New Jersey. Third one is also talking about teachers. As some of the 2 speakers here tonight that I've known for several years, Mr. Greenberg, or Ms. Adams for 3 years, Mr. Greenberg for 6 years under the FCC PTA. As you know, we're talking about a new year, but it's also their last 6 months as serving as president. At the same time, I think you've seen their fearless efforts of supporting parents, students, and our community. I hope we don't lose their talent. Sometimes it's a hard job representing teachers when the one you're going against is their boss, their superintendent. But I think they also make our parents, our community a lot better in things that they bring up. So hopefully we don't lose this talent, ma'am. They keep it within the system, maybe at administration level, because they've seen the systematic look. So hopefully in the next couple months, if they don't want to go back to where they're at, hopefully you can bring them at this top level and build the bridges that they've done for so many decades as their advocacy. The fourth item is, well, good luck. Good luck on the budget coming up. End of the day, I pray for you. I wish this would have done last year. Dr. Garza, you know my feelings from last year. You should have asked for the whole thing last year. Election year, I don't use that as an excuse. Please get out of the politics and let the electeds do the business. You just fight for us, parents and students, and put a true budget up each year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kimberly Adams.
Good evening, Dr. Garza and school board members. My name is Kimberly Adams, and I am the president of the Fairfax Education Association. I welcome each of the new board members to the dais this evening, and I encourage all of you to continue to engage with the Fairfax Education Association. You know that your employees are dedicated to keeping our system world-class. I wanted to take a moment to remind those employees who are watching tonight that whether they are members of the FEA or another education organization, we are all employees of a school system that prides itself on giving the best opportunities to all of our students. We are critical to the success of our students. No matter what job you perform within the system, you know how important your job is, and every snapshot is to the complete picture of a school day, week, and year. We know that the annual lobbying for funds always seems to take center stage, and earlier today, Dr. Garza referred to it as a war. But beyond this, we must commit ourselves to the portrait of a graduate, make new and more targeted strides to address achievement gaps, and continue to put kids first. Critical thinking and communication skills must be addressed in our school culture. As the Virginia Department of Education enacts policies around the new Every Student Succeeds Act, this needs to raise a global 21st century skilled citizenry. This is becoming more attainable now. With fewer tests, more emphasis on STEAM, and allowing for teacher autonomy, we may find these results in our schools now. I encourage those of us who believe in the mission of FCPS to take that on as our armor in this war. Fairfax County Public Schools inspires and empowers students to meet high academic standards, lead healthy, ethical lives, and be responsible and innovative global citizens. While this mission is certainly seen as a funding issue, it is more about our future and the future of our children. If you are not an employee or a parent, you may not realize our value. The county, the Commonwealth, and yes, even the world are counting on FCPS to develop the minds of tomorrow's problem solvers and medical experts, lawyers and fabricators, engineers and congressmen, and hopefully some firefighters, police, and teachers, among others. The need for public schools does not diminish over time. We must be as strong today as we were years ago, if not stronger, due to the challenges of poverty and job insecurity. Our future depends on us, and we must remind people that FCPS is still great and must continue to be so. I urge everyone to take this on as a campaign across Fairfax County, to tell our neighbors about who we are and what is at stake. Invite those who feel no connection to our schools to come in and see for themselves what is going on in our schools, what we do every day, what amazing students are in our classrooms. To dare those who speak ill about our challenges to come and see for themselves how valuable we are to solving the problems of tomorrow. I believe in this mission. The question is, do all of you?
Thank you. That is all the speakers that we have signed up for tonight. I would just remind, because I know there are a lot of people in the room who are interested in the budget conversation, we will have budget public hearings on January 25th, right here in the evening as well, and we will go on to January 26th and 27th if necessary. So if you wanted to speak about the budget, that would be your opportunity. Item 3.02, Student Representative Matters. I call on Mr. Press for a report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening and happy 2016. It's wonderful to be back at the board table and back in school, although some of my peers might disagree with me. I do want to say a thank you to you all for once again including that extended winter break into our calendar for this year and carrying that forward to future years. That is absolutely critical, as I've said before, to establishing a culture of student wellness and perpetuating that in the future. So I wanted to thank you all for that, as we come back and transition back into school. And I do promise to be quick this evening because I know we want to get to the elephant in the room, so I'll just promise to be very brief. I was delighted to attend today's presentation of the budget at West Potomac High School. I want to thank Dr. Garza for outstanding presentation, but I also want to highlight the student presence that we had there today. We were fortunate enough to hear from an absolutely outstanding student voice in Sammy Ahmed, a student at George C. Marshall High School, who shared his perspectives as an immigrant, as a student in our system, and was able to bring light to the fact that our investments in education need to be carried forward. His perspective was extremely valuable, and thank you once again for including him. Also to the students and staff of West Potomac High School for being so welcoming to us. We had a large crowd there today, and I know it wasn't easy for them to accommodate us, but they were absolutely outstanding and just welcomed us with open arms. I'd like to extend a thank you to the Falls Church High School leadership class for allowing me to speak with them today. I had a great visit with them around the issue, particularly of facilities. As we know, Falls Church is one of our remaining legacy high schools, and we had a very enlightening discussion about not only that, but the way they've incorporated diversity into their school's culture and how they've worked with their students with physical disabilities to make their school a better place. I also want to thank Dr. Garza once again for her business luncheon that we enjoyed yesterday. I was fortunate enough to be joined there by Ms. Huff and Ms. Hines at South Lakes High School. Really good discussion with members of our business community about the things we're doing in the career and technical education areas to prepare our students for 21st century jobs. Finally, I'm looking forward to our upcoming Student Advisory Council meeting at Hayfield High School. Note that is a change. I will be visiting Herndon High School tomorrow and Oakton High School next week. And I just want to make my regular lame duck announcement that this election for the next student representative of the school board will be held February 9th, and any students who are interested in running applications are due in 1 week from today, January 14th. If you're interested in public service and getting to work with some outstanding people from all across the system, I highly encourage you to look into it. And now back to our regular programming.
Thank you, Mr. Press. Good job. All right, item 3.03, fiscal year 2017 proposed budget. I call on Dr. Garza.
you. Thank you. My goodness. As I was saying earlier, I just want you to know how deeply appreciative I am, because I do feel your support, and I know on behalf of our school board and all of our school system, you being here tonight is so important and so deeply appreciated. So thank you very much. For those of you that may have participated in some other events today, the presentation tonight will be a little bit more technical and maybe a little tedious in some places, but it is an opportunity to really talk a little bit more about the details and a little bit more about the mechanics of the budget. So I have to apologize in advance. It's not going to be as lively as the press conference we had earlier today or the employee briefing. In addition to that, I just wanted you all to know, too, that this is just the first of, we of course have had many meetings on our budgets, but this will be just the first on the proposed fiscal year 17 budget, and there will be many more of those ahead. So I will ask you to stay tuned. At the end of this presentation, there is a list of dates that you may be of interest to you, but the main thing I wanted to point out tonight is the board does have scheduled a more lengthy discussion about what I'm presenting tonight this coming Monday at the work session. So if we don't have a lot of lengthy discussion about it tonight, it does not necessarily connote lack of interest on the part of the board. We do have significant time scheduled on Monday to go into depth about this. So I thought I might want to point that out tonight. And again, I do want to thank you so much. I felt the support, and I will tell you, I also was moved when I got back to my office today after the press conference and employee briefing. I had countless numbers of emails from employees and constituents and parents thanking us for taking care of our schools and championing for our schools. And so I want to thank you for that. I was moved, honestly. Your presence and the feedback that we're receiving certainly is humbling, but it also makes me very hopeful because just my voice and just the voice of the members of this board is not sufficient to solve this problem. It really requires, you are the key ingredient in solving this daunting and important challenge moving forward. So it gives me great hope to see you here tonight, and I hope you stay with us along this road, along this journey in the months ahead. I would be remiss if I didn't thank some of my staff and team. We are so fortunate in Fairfax County to have some of the most talented educators, leaders that I've ever worked with in all of my career. I've been doing this a long time too. I'm kind of old. I've been doing this for almost 30 years, and we have such dedicated, talented employees. And that team sitting right over there are great examples of this great team that we have. And I have to acknowledge Susan Quinn specifically tonight. Susan Quinn, Kristen Michael. Budget season kind of never winds down, so these folks have to work countless hours in supporting and being honest, helping us be honest brokers in these important conversations. So I do appreciate their work, and there are many people behind them too that also help with that, so I want to thank them for that. I also want to thank Matt Guilfoyle and his team, our Executive Director for Communications. Matt has done an amazing job. And he, too, has a great team of folks that work so hard to support our outreach and making sure that our community is well informed about the work that's going on in our school system. That's important effort. And then, because I'm spreading some thanks around, I also want to thank, because I will touch on it later in the presentation, I want to thank our budget task force. Every year since I've been here, this board, along with myself and our leadership team, we've really sat down and seriously considered how might we really engage the community, because we have a responsibility, we feel, to make sure that our community understands and knows what's going on and certainly knows the challenges that we face. And so over these last several years, we've had hundreds of meetings in the community, hundreds and hundreds. And every year we step back and we say, what do we need to be doing differently in the coming year to better in terms of outreach to our community? So this past year, we said we've got to step it up even more. And so we developed the online budget tool. Thousands of individuals took advantage of that budget tool. I want to thank you for that. I think that was a very instructive work, and it's still available on our website. We also put together a budget task force because we knew this next round of cuts, should we have to make them, would impact our schools and our programs and services. And we felt that our community had to have a say, that we could not make those decisions in isolation. So our wonderful budget task force did an amazing amount of work, the hours they put into over 6 months. There were many, many meetings, lots of work done behind the scenes. There were a number of you in the room, our task force members. If you served on the task force, if you would please stand, because I want to thank you. We gave them a daunting challenge because they too have said, we don't want to make these cuts, we don't like this exercise, but we said if we find ourselves in this position, we need to know how the community would have us approach that challenge. And so Matt Haley, I want to thank you for being the chair of that committee. When I called Matt and asked him to do that, he had no idea what he was getting into. But I deeply respect the work of the task force, and Matt, I'm deeply appreciative for your work. Today is a very important day for Fairfax County Public Schools. And I've described it earlier today as I really see it as a crossroads. And which way are we going to go? Are we going to go the way where we decide that after 9 consecutive years of cuts that we've got to begin to restore and renew our system? Or are we going to go the path where we have to continue to make the cuts? And we've seen, thanks to our task force, what that could look like. And our community has expressed their feelings about this over these last 6 months pretty clearly, that they do not want us to continue the cuts. And so I would ask that as we continue this conversation, do we continue to cut our system to the point where we no longer recognize FCPS? That's what's next. And so we don't want to continue to cut beyond the point of recognition. So I thank you for taking a stand today, because I think today is the day that we have to take a stand and say we can no longer cut. Each of these crossroads, each of these paths take us to a very different place. And so in the next month, in the months ahead, I would just ask, as we stand at this crossroads, help us always be mindful, help our community be mindful of the different roads and how it might impact our system a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and into the future. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the proposed budget. I'm going to preach every once in a while. I'll show you some facts, and then I'll preach. This is kind of the way I do it. So, investing in excellence. We're very proud of the history of excellence that exists in this school system. And I will tell you, sometimes people say, all y'all talk about is the budget. And that's not true. We do talk about the budget a lot because we have a responsibility to take care of this system, but we're not mired in deficit thinking. We're a school system that is doing important and meaningful work for children every day. Just look at the student outcomes. We continue to outpace and outperform every school system in our state and throughout the United States on just about every measure you look at. We have... And we, not only our outcomes continue to be great, because our employees, despite the challenges we face, they are so dedicated and they just dig in and Their service to children is second to none. But so for anyone that thinks that this school system is not on the move, because we are definitely on the move, I would encourage you to go to our website. We have a list there on our website of all the accomplishments of this school system right now, and the many wonderful things that the school board and the system had, the great work that's underway that's making a difference for our children today. So lest anyone thinks that we're standing still and waiting for the budget problems to be solved, please go online, because I think you'll be very, very proud of what great things are going on in our system. Besides all of that, we do have a vision for the future. And we do have the capacity and the talent to solve so many issues that are facing public schools across the country. This school system is positioned to solve a lot of those and really show the way for many other school systems across the country. I have to give our board a lot of credit because this board, along with the leadership team, members, I think over 30,000 people participated in the development of our strategic plan, and I'm very proud of it. And so if you want to know about what is this school system thinking about in terms of the future, I would encourage you to go read our strategic plan. And in that strategic plan, you'll see evidence of the direction that this board has set around assessment, around the future, 21st century skills, our Portrait of a Graduate. Those things I'm very, very proud of as a system. And what's interesting and exciting too is the fact that much of what's been discussed by this board and this system for some time is now being replicated at our state level and in other school systems across the country. So there's a lot to be proud of in FCPS. And those are our goals in our strategic plan, so go look at those. We do have a great vision ahead for our schools. So let's talk about how we arrived at fiscal year 2017. And I'll touch on some of these just very quickly. Since 2008, we have cut almost $500 million out of our operating budget. That means for 9 consecutive years, we've been cutting. So if anyone were to suggest to you that, you know what, FCPS needs to do their part and they just need to dig in and do a little bit more, I would tell you we have done our part. We have done our part. And simply revenues, although we have gotten additional increases every year, those increases have been sorely inadequate to even meet the required increased cost on an annual basis for our system. So it's not because we've had to cut just to balance budgets. And due to limited resources that have been available to us, unfortunately, this board, at the end of April, when we find out how much money we're going to have, has been faced with these terrible decisions for many years about how do we balance a budget. And sadly, we've not been able to do, in many cases, what we've needed to do for our employees. And so now we find ourselves in a position of no longer being competitive as it relates to employee salaries across this area. We are engaged in a compensation study, and I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But I will tell you, this board and this leadership team and this superintendent are very concerned about making sure that our salaries are competitive, because we know that having a great teacher in the classroom makes all the difference in the world. Having a great bus driver, having great food service workers, it all matters. So how have we approached the budget? And I will tell you the fiscal year 17 proposed budget that I put out today is not asking for the moon and the stars, I promise you that. It only includes those things that are our most basic and most pressing needs. Quite honestly, the budget that's been proposed today, I could tell you right now 4 or 5 or 6 things right off the top of my head that aren't included in this budget that are significant needs for our system. So if anyone suggests to you that we're asking for the moon and the stars, or that this budget that I proposed is really a needs-based budget. It's not. It's not a needs-based budget. It's a budget that addresses our most pressing and most important needs right now. And so I want you to know, when people say you're asking for 6.7%, oh my goodness, it reflects our only our basic needs. This budget includes no cuts to the system. And it adds funding for what I consider, and I know this board considers some of our most pressing needs, because this is not, this board has talked about this quite a bit, and that's taking care of our employee salary increases, and we've got to address our elementary class sizes, and I'll talk about more of that in just a moment. And as was pointed out earlier in some of the comments that were made, yes, last two budget cycles on this very day, I did propose budgets that included cuts. In fiscal year 15, I proposed a budget that included $98 million worth of cuts. And folks, if I had not done that, our deficit would have been well over $200 million, and I would have had to ask for a little over 11% increase in the transfer. We were trying to be good partners. Of course, that wasn't funded, and those $98 million worth of cuts were made. But they were cuts I didn't like, but I felt like we could tolerate. In fiscal year 16, I again proposed a budget with $65 million worth of cuts, and those cuts were made. No, we didn't get the amount that we asked for or needed, and so we were caught again with a shortfall. So I am not afraid as a superintendent to make cuts in a budget if I feel like we can do it, and if it's the right thing for our system. And simply, when I look at the cuts that are before us now, after 9 consecutive years of cuts, I cannot in good conscience bring forward cuts because of the long-lasting and detrimental impact I believe any one of those would have on our system. So I simply couldn't do it this time. Any of the next round of cuts, if necessary, and I will tell you there's a danger to not proposing cuts because people think that everything's okay now, because it's not. This is a budget I'm proposing that down the road many other people have to decide to support and fund, and that's our elected officials. But these next round of cuts, if necessary, will change the face of our school system. The very school system that is considered the foundation of Fairfax County, and the reason that so many families and businesses live here or relocate here. And many of you came here just for the schools, didn't you? So today I'm proposing a budget that does invest, once again, in our classrooms and in our employees and in our teachers, and first and foremost, in our students. The budget is a $2.7 billion operating budget. It is a 4.8% increase over the fiscal year 2016. That's our current budget. And the reason there is an increase is because when you increase salaries, the budget automatically increases. In addition to that, the budget has to fund some required increases that we have no control over. And I'll talk about those in just a little bit. So the majority of the increase represents what I consider a modest investment and needed investment in our employees and employee compensation, and to fund the required increases that we have to fund. Beyond those things that are required in our budget, the additional things that I've added are really pretty simple. There are only 2, and that is employee compensation and class sizes at the elementary level. Those investments that I'm proposing are well aligned with our strategic plan and the priorities that are reflected in the document. So these aren't just priorities pulled out of the air. These are stated priorities of our system and things that we know we need to address and that are important to us. So let's start with student success. Addressing elementary class sizes. Over the last, I don't know how many years, but for quite a number of years, since 2008, we've had to raise class sizes 3 times to balance the budget. And then as a result, we have some of the highest elementary class sizes of anywhere around us. I will tell you, our teachers do a great job, even though the class sizes may be large, but we can do better, and we must do better. So this past year, with the support of this board, we put into place for the first time guidelines for elementary class sizes. Those were implemented. There was an investment by this board of $6.5 million in the current year, and I will tell you, it's making a difference. It's making a difference. I hear from teachers, I hear from parents, I hear from our principals that it's making a difference, but we're not there yet. We still have classes of over 30 students in a classroom across our system, and we simply must do better. So this includes an additional investment of about $10.5 million to help us address class sizes and to ensure that no elementary class, no AAP class, no class period in our system is 30 or higher. We've got to make that happen. I will tell you, it's not the end point. We've got continued work to do, but this is an important investment in our students and in our teachers. With the next piece of the budget is certainly aligned with Premier Workforce. So I know this board has spent a lot of time thinking about how do we attract and retain the best employees in FCPS. And so this next piece is aligned with our Premier Workforce goal. In this chart, which is really hard for you all to see, I know our board has it in front of them. These materials are all online, so I welcome and encourage you to go online and see these. But to achieve a premier workforce, compensation must remain a priority, and we must continue to invest in our employees. That has to happen. Due to financial constraints over time, step increases for FCPS employees were withheld for 4 of the past 7 years, and salary scale adjustments were frozen for 3 of the past 7 years. So you can see over time the effect that limited resource has had on our compensation system over time, and we must turn that tide. It's just too important. So this budget has included in it a step increase for all eligible employees and a 1% market scale adjustment for all employees that's proposed in the proposed fiscal year 17 budget. And that would be, and I assured our employees that we will protect this to the bitter end. This would represent the largest increase our employees have received for quite a long time. So it's very, very important. This board asked for a compensation study, which is the direction we need to go. We need to understand where we are, and we need to have a plan for how do we get better in all of these areas. And that work is well underway. The first part of the compensation study has been presented to the board. We will not get all the final results until later this spring into the end of the school year. And we will be developing a multi-year plan and strategy to address all of our employee compensation scales to ensure that we're competitive in the marketplace. Every employee in this system contributes to our mission in serving children, and so all of our employees, we know it will require continued investment over the coming years, and we will develop a strategy for making sure that that is done. We know that we have to invest in our teacher salary schedule. Now, I talked with our employees today, and we've been visiting all fall about what this budget could look like. And I will tell you that this budget includes an additional $40 million to be added to our teacher scale. I think we were all saddened to see where we have fallen in terms of where we now stand in the marketplace as it relates to teacher salaries. And I will tell you, I think we all recognize the importance of a great teacher in every classroom. It doesn't mean that not everyone else is important. Everyone else is important, but we have to start somewhere. And we are committed to addressing the compensation challenges we have for all of our employees, but we have to start somewhere. And this year, I think we were all very concerned. We started off the year with 200 open and vacant positions. It's never happened in Fairfax County Public School history, and that's a concern. There's a national shortage of teachers across the nation. This is not the time for us to have lagging teacher salaries when the marketplace is so tight and so competitive. So this budget includes an additional $40 million as an initial investment in making our salaries much more competitive. And I think it will send a strong message to our teachers that we respect and value their work, and we're committed to getting this right. If you haven't looked at the study, this line graph essentially illustrates kind of where we are. And granted, we do have things that take care of our employees. We have a supplemental retirement. We have some other things in terms of total compensation. But in terms of the money that our teachers have to pay the bills and to make ends meet, this is what it is. And we're all going to make sure that we do better, and it certainly illustrates the importance of additional investment in our teacher scales. Additional expenditures, you'll find, I'm going to walk through those here in the budget. There are additional expenditures. The majority, as I mentioned to you, is related to compensation. But I'm going to talk about expenditures, and they're grouped in 4 major categories: enrollment and student demographics, compensation, program operations, infrastructure, and then budget reductions. On enrollment and student demographics, for those of you that have followed our system for some time, I think our high point in terms of growth was 2013. I should have mentioned since 2008, we've cut almost $500 million. At that same time, we've grown by 22,000 students. So it's been a very fast-growing period, and with resources being somewhat mitigated. This year, in the fiscal year 16 budget, there was an amount included of $22.1 million for growth in student demographics. And what that means is for some students that may need additional support or special programming, there are greater costs associated with that, and so that's what the student demographic piece is. This year, we've seen a slowing of our growth, a significant slowing of our growth, so I'm pleased to report that next year's budget, we will not have to include any additional money for growth. We believe that the current budget will be sufficient to cover what growth we will experience next year. That helps tremendously in our budget. Otherwise, we would have to put another 20 to 22 million in this budget to cover growth. So this is a good news story. We'll have to continue to monitor our enrollment and our growth next year. This could be an anomaly this year, and so we'll have to watch it moving forward. But we believe that's a good thing, good news story in our budget. On total compensation, these are the costs associated with the raises that I mentioned earlier. The first is the salary increase for all employees across the board. The next is the additional investment in our teacher scale. The next piece is a living wage adjustment. We have employees in our system living right here in Fairfax or working for us here in Fairfax County that their pay is below the living wage, and that can't be in Fairfax County. We cannot do that. So for a modest investment of $1.4 million, it helps tremendously all of our food service, wonderful food service workers, our bus drive, thank you. Our bus attendants, and then some of our custodial staff. And I know that would be important. The other thing that's important to point out, of course, we have to cover health insurance. It's a required increase, so that's $16.5 million. When people talk about, you might make a note that that's a required increase. The next one is also a required increase, the Virginia Retirement System rate of $11.9 million. And I will tell you, because of a one-time investment by the General Assembly this past summer, that helped us lower that amount. Otherwise, that would be well over $20-something million, which also helped. So we're grateful for that investment by the General Assembly this past summer that helped in that area. But that's a required contribution and increase, as well as is the last one. So the last three items on this particular chart are required increases for the system. For program operations and infrastructure, contractual services, a lot of times we contract services out. That saves us money. In those contracts, we have required increases. A lot of times it's often for computer systems that we have a contract with. Then those are also a required increased cost. We have no control over that. School bus replacement of $2.2 million. We have been trying to replace some of our old buses. We have a fleet of over 1,600 buses, and many of those are 15 years or older. Not too long ago, it was about almost 400 buses were 15 years or older, and so we're trying to, over time, chip away at getting our bus fleet, and that's a safety concern as well for our system. The utility increase, we've been saving lots of money on utilities, and in fact, just the last few years, we've saved well over $4 million in paying attention to our energy conservation. But we have had a rate increase that we have to cover, so we did have to put $1 million in the budget to cover those utility rates. We're also very proud of the fact that we have more Energy Star certified schools than any other school system in the country. More than Los Angeles Unified even. I think they have like 1,200 schools. We still have more than they do, energy certified. So we do pay attention to saving cost for operations. Anywhere we can helps us put more money into classrooms and in taking care of our schools. And then grants, that has to do with a lot of our federal and grants that we receive. On budget reductions, we do have a few budget reductions of consequence in our budget. They're not affecting programs and services. This is good fiscal management, what I'm going to tell you about. Every year for the last several years, this school board has recognized compensation-based savings, and that's helped our bottom line every year. And what that means is, as positions become open, as people retire, and if we hire someone who may have fewer years of experience, it's a savings to the system. We actually lower our salary file to reflect those savings. So if we did not do that, that would add, how much is that? I didn't turn my page. I'm getting so caught up, I'm not even turning my pages. But compensation-based savings, it adds about $20 million in savings to our budget, which is a very good thing. So, and then I just want to remind folks, oftentimes people say, well, how could you be cutting if your budget's going up? I will tell you that if you go online, we do have a document that shows every year since 2008 the actual items and positions that we have cut, And I will tell you, I've sat across the table from people whose positions were eliminated. But today, because of all of those cuts, we have 2,175 fewer people serving children and doing the work in our system. The reason the budget will oftentimes increase and yet increase even though we say we're cutting, it's like having a family budget where your salary increases, and that's a good thing, right? Your salary increases, so you get a salary increase, so you have more money available to support your family, but at the same time, you have costs that have gone up. Maybe your housing cost has gone up, maybe your health insurance has gone up, and those increases have exceeded the amount of raise that you got. So what you do is you go back, right? And then what we do at our homes is we go back and we cut out other things, right? So that our monies that we have available as a family can cover the expenses that we have. It's the same thing with the system. Our budget has gone up, but if we had not made the cuts that we have made, certainly our deficits on an annual basis would have been much, much higher as a system. You'll see here our expenditures by program, and I won't go into all of that, but I will tell you, I think it's important to note that 85.7% of all the money we spend in FCPS goes to our instructional programs, and that's a good news story, and that's higher than you'll find in other comparable school systems. This shows you the number of positions we have throughout our system, broken down by function, and I'll let you all look at that at some other time. I will tell you that non-school-based administrative support, we can compare ourselves to everyone around us, and we do have very low administrative cost as compared, and in fact, maybe frightening low. As we've grown as a system, we've continued to cut people in administrative support positions and have not added positions. So for an example, as we've grown and we've had to add teachers, we've not added positions in HR to support those teachers, right? And so that creates a strain over time. But I think the other point that you might be interested to note is we are the #1 largest employer in Fairfax County, and we're the #3 largest employer across the entire state, right behind the Department of Defense and Walmart. We're #3. See, you didn't think it was going to be Walmart, did you? But we're the 3rd largest employer in Virginia. This next piece of analysis, I think, is always noteworthy and important to track. And that's, one might ask, well, how do your expenditures compare to surrounding jurisdictions? The only way you can fairly compare, because everyone has different funding mechanisms. Everyone gets their funding in a different way. Montgomery County gets their funding in a different way. Of course, they're in a different state, but there are the most comparable school system close to us in terms of size. So the only way you can fairly kind of look at that, it's not the only way of looking at it, but it's one way of kind of fairly looking at cost, is looking at all the expenditures, all the money a school system has, and divided by the number of students, and that gives you the money available to serve students. I will tell you that if we received on an annual basis the same amount of money as Montgomery County does, we would get over $300 million more per year. That's pretty incredible. So that's why their salaries are a lot better than ours some cases, right? But that's staggering. So it may not look like it's significant on that chart. It translates into significant differences in revenue available. This next chart, I heard reference to the Saturday event where many will have the opportunity to speak to our delegation in Richmond. This is important, and this is an important piece of information that I have here on the screen. Is only 15% of our revenue that we get on an annual basis to serve our students comes from the state. Only 15%. Most school systems across Virginia get almost 50% of their money from the state. This creates a burden on our local elected officials and our local taxpayers. So the solution is not just our Board of Supervisors and our county. solution is also at the state level. They've got to share more in the cost of educating children in Fairfax County, and simply the system is not fair. And so please help us communicate to our state delegation that we've got to have more support from Richmond as well in serving our children. As I developed this budget, I'd hoped to have more money from the governor's proposed budget to assist in meeting this budget, but that didn't happen just yet, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. But right now, the proposed budget that I have before the school board does represent revenues totaling $2.7 billion. Again, as I said earlier, it represents a 4.7% increase over the fiscal year 16 approved budget. And these are the revenue highlights. There is a request of increased county funding of $122.7 million. State aid right now that we're showing is zero, and I'll explain that here in just a little bit. And this is talking about increase, okay? So we don't expect right now any increase in state aid. We hope that changes over the coming months. We will be getting, we think, additional revenue in terms of sales tax of $5.5 million. We'll continue to watch that, and if we feel like we might get more for the budget for next year, that will be something that could be adjusted in the coming months if we feel like we'll get more money. And then the final piece on that chart is we do have a contract with the city of Fairfax to provide services to the children that reside in the city. So the county transfer that would be needed because we don't have any additional state money that we're expecting right now would be a 6.7% increase to the transfer, and that caused some people some sticker shock today. I had someone say, "I can't believe you're asking for so much," and I said I should be asking for about 12%, honestly. So. Before 2008, the annual transfer increases were around 8 percentage points increase, 11 percentage point increase. Some of the board members have been on the board recognize. I think the superintendent at that time would ask for a lot more than that, but there were sizable increases prior to 2008. Since 2008 and since the recession, these last 9 years, the average increase that we received in terms of transfer increases is 2%. 3 of the last 9 years, we actually received a 0% increase. 2 of those 3 years were actually a reduction in county money. So when someone might suggest that this is an unreasonable request, I would counter that it's time for us to make up and restore our system and renew our system, and it's going to take some additional revenue for us to do that. If we only receive the 3% increase that was suggested in the transfer guidance, we will have to go back and find cuts of $70 million to fund this system, to fund this budget. And I will tell you, for those of you who've been on the budget tool, and for those of you that are on the budget task force, that is much more difficult than you might think to come up with $70 million worth of cuts. So when people say you're asking for the moon and stars, which I said we're not, we're asking only for our most pressing needs, I will tell you this is why the strain has been great on our system for some time. The teal-colored bar chart represents required cost drivers, things that have created conditions where the cost to the system have been great. For an example, in fiscal year 15, my honeymoon year, when I cut $98 million in the budget, we had that year a required increase to VRS of $37 million. So you can see those required increases have put an enormous strain on the system. And then you notice the line across that represents the transfers increases that we've received from the county. And you can see why the gap has created a challenge for us as a system. When I mentioned earlier the governor's proposed budget, I did have hopes over the holidays that this budget that we feel is so important for our system moving forward, we had hoped that we'd be able to at least anticipate some significant money from the state to help us, fund the budget. And I'm hoping that will change. But right now, the governor's proposed budget, sadly, does not help us in Fairfax County. And in fact, right now, at best, we can anticipate an additional $6 million next year, and that's best case scenario. And as I've looked at the 6.7% increase to the transfer, if I were to subtract the $6 million, I think it changed it to 6.45 or something like that. That's how little consequence that little amount of money had on the bottom line. That proposed budget includes $3 million in new elementary instructional positions, so we have to fund that additional investment in lowering elementary class size, even to get the $3 million. And then $2.9 million of the state's estimate is for enrollment growth that we think is overprojected, so we don't anticipate that being realized. And then the other thing that is concerning to us is much of the new money was pushed to the second year of the biennium into fiscal year 18. And then that's good news, but the bad news is they've accelerated in that proposed budget the full funding of VRS, meaning that our next 10% increase that would be required for VRS would no longer be fiscal year 19 as we've been planning, because it's supposed to be fiscal year 15, fiscal year 17, and fiscal year 19, rotating years. It actually would accelerate the full funding of VRS into fiscal year 18, and any new state money that we could potentially get would be gone, absorbed by that change. So that's not good news. And so as you visit with your legislators, we need to stick to the original timeline for VRS. And in fact, we would argue to slow it down a little bit, not accelerate it. It would certainly help every school system, every division in Virginia. It's a good thing. And I will just tell you, I said today to the groups that we met with earlier that, a quality education is not a luxury. It's an absolute necessity. It's not a luxury. A luxury is like someone was telling me the other day that, their New Year's resolution to cut costs is to no longer stop at their special coffee cafe and get their special drink that they get every morning. That's a luxury that you can cut. I would suggest that a quality education is not a luxury, it is an absolute necessity. So the proposed budget, as I indicated earlier, is about proposing no longer cuts to our system, but provides for the basic needs. Our students, our teachers, our community, all of you in this room, you expect the excellence for FCPS to be maintained and protected and cherished into the future. The proposed budget includes no further cuts to instructional programs or services to students or schools, and includes only a modest investment that is necessary to sustain excellence. And I will tell you, I would encourage you, I would implore you, not because cuts are not reflected in this budget, to say everything's okay, because it's not. I'm so worried that if this budget is not fully funded, that we're going to find ourselves in a terrible position of saying, well, do we cut, since our budget wasn't funded, do we cut programs and services to students, or do we cut compensation for our employees? Do we protect programs and services for students, or do we protect compensation for employees? I would suggest that should not be the conversation. It should be, we're going to protect programs and services for students, and we're going to protect compensation for our employees. But I'm realistic. And if it's not funded, that is exactly what this school board and this leadership team will have to do, is determine what will we cut to make the budget work. I will tell you that these are some places, be sure to go and look at those places where you can join us, how you let your voice be known in this process. Please, I'm so excited and pleased to see you here tonight, but this is just the first step in the journey. So I would encourage you to stay with us. This is a longer road. This is just the first part of the journey, so I would encourage you to stay with us. We, sometime back, this hashtag was created. Have y'all seen the hashtag, SaveFCPS? And I will tell you that people said, oh my goodness, Karen, that caused a lot of people a lot of discomfort. It caused a lot of people a lot of discomfort. I will tell you that, and I understand that level of discomfort, but this is about as honest a statement I think that we could possibly make. This is a very honest statement. The decision, as I pointed out at the beginning of the presentation, the decisions in these next few months are really important to this system. And I believe, as I pointed out, we're at a critical juncture. We're at that crossroads. Which path are we going to take? If we go the path where we cut compensation for our employees or cut programs and services to students, I will tell you I'm not certain that FCPS will look the same into the future, maybe not even a year from now. The decisions ahead are so extremely important, and the stakes have never been higher. The stakes have never been higher. So I would ask you, I know that makes people uncomfortable, but we've got to have some level of discomfort to get people engaged and inspired to act. And so we need for you to stay along with us. Many of you know that I'm a big sports fan. I love college football. Tom and I were talking about college football just the other day. Lou Holtz is, I like to read a lot of what Lou Holtz says, and Lou Holtz has his quote, "Do the right thing, do the best you can, and always show people you care. You've got to make a sincere attempt to have the right goals to begin with, then go after them with the appropriate effort. And remember that you can't really achieve anything great without the help of others." I agree with Coach Holtz. We've got to have the right goal. We must have the right goal, and I believe we do. I know that we're prepared to put in as much effort as it takes to do the right thing for the system, and we can't do it without you. So please join me, join us, help us inspire this community to mobilize in support of our students, our schools, our FCPS. So thank you. That concludes my presentation for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. Excuse me, and thank you all for coming out tonight. We rarely have such a crowd in here, and it's really appreciated. And I know that it took organizers and organizing to get this done, and so thank you very much. So for what's happening next, the school board will have 2 work sessions, one on January 11 and one on January 28th, in order to really talk about the nuts and bolts of this budget. We will vote on February 4th. But for tonight, we have time for maybe some general comments or clarifying questions. So I think I will begin with our budget chair and vice chair, and then any other board member who would like to speak, starting with Janie Strauss, our budget chair.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First, for our wonderful visitors tonight and many of our new board members, the School Board Budget Committee is a committee of the whole, and Ms. Darna Kofex and I will be helping to facilitate the conversation as we go forward. And our first major work session is Monday, as been stated. And at that time, we will have the opportunity to dig deeply into this budget. And I know as people are beginning to file out, we do encourage folks to go to the meeting on Saturday. The state budget is very important. Our Board of Supervisors are lobbying hard with us to increase funding at the state level. The state pie of money for education has shrunk dramatically. So our ability to fund this budget does, even though the state only funds about 15% of our budget, it is still 15%. So we encourage folks to help us and to advocate with us. We have formed a coalition called the Urban Crescent, and it is with all of the school boards, the city town councils, the Board of Supervisors, basically along the whole eastern part of Virginia, trying to get the Commonwealth of Virginia to encourage its investment in schools. So that is everybody's job very quickly, is to work with the state. As we move forward, as Dr. Garza said, yes, and there is our calendar. This is just the beginning of this very long conversation. We will not finish it until the end of May. So please take your vitamin C pills. We will need everybody's continued work. As Dr. Garza said, our schools belong to the community, and this will be a community discussion. The school board, we can argue and push all we want, but it is ultimately up to the community that will ultimately decide how we turn this page that we so desperately want to do. A couple of very important dates up there. The school board, we will adopt our advertised budget on February 4th. There will be 2 work sessions, more work sessions and a public hearing. The county executive, Mr. Long, will be releasing the county's advertised budget on February 16th. The tax rate, the upper level of the tax rate, will be advertised and decided by the Board of Supervisors in early March. That is a critical date. For those of you who have not been through this process before, the Board of Supervisors will set a ceiling on the tax rate, and they will agree not to go above that tax rate. They can go below it. So by early March, that will define the outline of the funding that will be available in the county for both the schools and the county budget. So much work needs to be done before we get to that point. Then obviously in April, there will be another round of public hearings with the Board of Supervisors after the school board adopts our advertised budget. Under the Code of Virginia, our budget then goes to the county executive, and it is folded into the entire county's budget, and then it goes forward as one budget. There will be opportunities for school board members to ask many, many questions of staff. We also will be asking questions of the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors ask questions of us. So there is an ongoing public sharing of budget questions asked and answered. And you can take a look at these. You can ask us questions. If we aren't sure of the answer, we will ask those questions. Those are very important. The Board of Supervisors will be undergoing a 2-year process of what they call their lines of business. But we all need to ask questions of all of us, because in the end, we've got to figure out where we're going with this. I want to also say that one of our speakers tonight, I thought very eloquently, and in repeating what Dr. Garza has said, our county public schools are important, obviously, to the economy of our own Fairfax County and our state. But you know, the investment in our children and our teachers, this is an investment not just in our individual children. Is it an investment in everyone's future? Our children's education is more important than ever. Our children, as graduates, will have to solve difficult problems that we watch on the news every night. We will look to these children, and we are the world in Fairfax County. What an amazing asset we have.
We do.
Some of the best and the brightest are coming to us. And it is our children that we are preparing to be the problem solvers and to find the solutions we desperately need in this world. This is no time to back off on children's education. It's time to turn the page. So please stay with us. This is a difficult conversation. Thank you, Dr. Garza. And if there are clarifying questions, Ms. Darana Koufax, and of course, there will be many opportunities for us to dig deep into this budget. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I think I'll sit down if that's okay, and I can answer certainly questions from over there too. Is that all right?
Of course, you don't have to ask permission, Dr.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Darana Koufax?
Thank you, Chairman Hines. Thank you all for being here as well. I want to start by thanking Dr. Garza and her entire team for putting together this proposed budget, one that she says is needed to have at a bare minimum to begin to restore and renew our system. That's very, very important. As a parent, as well as a school board member, I have personally seen the challenges that have emerged as a result of chronic underfunding of our schools. So I am one of you. I have a child in the school. I have a child that just graduated from this school. And thank you. And I know why you're here. You're here because you care. You care about your children, but you also care about the community at large. And I thank you for being here. I am as energized as all of you have been all night about the road that is beginning with the conversation on this proposed budget. It's very, very important that we all work together in conversation. If you have questions, ask us. Each one of us will be having opportunities to have budget forums, town halls, at PTA meetings. Come out, continue to support us. Tell your friends and neighbors we need them to engage. This is the year we need help. We need you to understand. If you have questions, as I said, ask us, and we need you to spread the word for us. Saturday is another opportunity for you to do that. At the Government Center, beginning around 9 a.m., we will have opportunities to speak to our Northern Virginia delegation. So thank you again for coming. I look forward to seeing many of you throughout the years. And as we said, today is just the start of our conversation. And remember, this is for our kids and our community. And thank you for being here.
Ms. Evans?
Yes, thank you. I want to start also by thanking Dr. Garza for her leadership on this budget. I think we've got a very good start here, Dr. Garza and her team, of course. And it's wonderful to see so many community members out tonight, so many supporters of our school system. As others have said, this is just the start. And it is time to turn around this painful era of cuts and more cuts. We need to rebuild, we need to reinvest. We cannot have a stellar school system without adequate funding. That's the bottom line. We must pay our teachers and other wonderful employees what we know we need to be paying them. We need to pay them competitively. We need to pay them more than we have been able to do in the past. They have stuck with us. That we have a wonderful, wonderful group of teachers and other employees, and we need to be able to pay more for them, to keep them with us and to attract and retain the very best. I hope everyone does stay engaged. As it's just the beginning. We will need to go and advocate with all of our funders for more revenue. If we don't, then we are going to be facing a continued era of cuts, and we just can't sustain that. It's time to get back on track. So thank you all for being here.
Mr. Moon?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Garza, for the presentation and your proposed budget for our consideration. I look forward to having a more in-depth discussion at the work session on Monday and for several more months to come until we are finally done in May. I know that you invoked my name several times during your presentation, a moon and a star, and you didn't ask for a moon and a star. But as far as I am concerned, you can always ask for me. I will be on your side. I have been on your side. I will be on your side. Having said that, I sent in a couple of questions, but I am just going to ask, just for public at least, that I'll ask you one question for elaboration on compensation. Obviously, compensation is very critical, and most of money going to compensation. And your proposal is basically asking for 3.5% compensation increase for our employees, and about 2.5% of that goes into for the step. And let me ask you, the percentage of employees eligible for the step increase. I see that in the more detailed packet, is that about 92%?
It's usually higher than that, Mr. Moon. It's usually around 95, 96% of our employees are eligible for a step increase. I will tell you, though, that the way that it's an average is the 3.5 is an average because it depends upon what step employees are based on how much they get. But as I indicated to you all in some correspondence just recently, as we move through this process, the board can make some decisions about how the execution or the mechanics of those raises are done. And we do have a lot of decisions. I mean, it could be we do the traditional step, assuming funding, step and a 1% market scale adjustment. The board can, and the additional $40 million for the teacher scale, there's a lot of decisions that the board can make this spring about how it's actually done.
All right, thank you, Dr. Garza. I don't want to take up too much of your time or board's time, but a major background reason why I did bring that up is, I think based upon this information in the packet, it's about 92.2% of our employees eligible for a step increase. I'm using that number, that if 3.5% is average figure for a compensation increase for those who are eligible to have a step increase, but if only 92% of employees are eligible for that step increase, from my perspective, for the entire group of employees, it's not 3.5% increase, but it's more like a 3.2%, which may be less than what the county is planning on doing, as we understand, because they are planning on proposing at least, as I understand it, giving their employees about 3.5% increase. So even with this proposal, we're not really proposing to give our employees more than the county side. That's what I'm trying to ascertain from you.
Mr. Moon, that's an excellent question, and I probably should have included that within my presentation or discussion. The across-the-board salary increase that's proposed in this budget, assuming approved, would be the highest increase that our employees receive for some time. But yet, it is aligned with what the county is proposing for all of their employees as well. I think theirs is around a 3.33, 3.45. So it is very much in line with what the county has projected for their employees at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. You're the moon and we're the stars. I thought that was clear. Ms. McLaughlin?
I want to echo what's so important about the points Dr. Garza made tonight when we talk about what a needs-based budget looks like. I won't speak for my colleagues, but I will speak to the community that no, this is not a needs-based budget, unfortunately. It's a maintenance of effort budget. If we were to submit a budget of need, it would far exceed any guidance that we receive from the county executive and the board of supervisors. And so this is, I believe, Dr. Garza following the guidance of this board and saying, we do recognize that the county revenue is not where it needs to be, that we are disproportionately depending upon real estate taxes that impact our taxpayers and homeowners. And there's only so much that we can go to one well and draw upon. So to our employees and to our community, as a former parent advocate, I am so grateful for every one of you who came out tonight, for those of you who've been working so hard on this message and raising awareness throughout our county, and for those who are at home as well, watching and plugged in and caring about a strong public school system. I do believe that this commitment, this investment that you all have demonstrated tonight and you've demonstrated to this point is greatly needed for our supervisors to feel the political will to say that in order to fund our schools, this maintenance of effort to protect what we have provided all up until this current school year, at minimum, we need to honor the budget that Dr. Garza is proposing. And I know that my colleagues and I will have very robust discussions between now and February 4th when we vote on the budget. But I really think it's important that we all focus on this is about fairness and equity. The county executive has not come forward and indicated any cuts of any kind. And therefore, I did not want to see Dr. Garza come forward with any cuts proposed at this time. It's called, how can we sustain strong services in Fairfax County? And that includes our schools. So if anyone out there in the community says to you, why is it the schools are always asking for so much more money? Please indicate to them that this budget represents fairness and equity to our schools, as we would expect for all county services. We are one county, and the funding that we have for all valuable county services includes our public schools. And so I implore you to continue this very strong message, help our funding authority, the Board of Supervisors, understand, yes, we can lobby to the state, but anybody who's followed what happens in the state knows we have very little effect. It's so much more complicated down in Richmond. But what's not complicated is a strong, positive relationship with the Board of Supervisors, and that includes the community voice telling the supervisors what we need and expect when we live here in Fairfax County. I'm in my 15th year as a Fairfax County parent. I'm married to a Fairfax County graduate. Extremely proud to be not only a member of this board, but also to be a member of the Fairfax County family. And so please bring your energy and remember the important dates that have been shared on how important, especially the supervisors need to hear from you before they set that tax rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Press?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to begin by thanking Dr. Garza and the budget team for an outstanding proposal tonight. The budget is one of the things I hear most about from students when I go into schools. They are deeply, deeply concerned about the situation that they see for themselves, for their younger siblings who are in schools, or younger siblings, as I've heard in many cases, who are not yet in schools but will be soon. They are very concerned and are frequently engaged in this process. I'm very proud that the Budget Task Force recommendations incorporated student voice in them, and the budget incorporates student priorities in them. You know, one of the questions that I really wish I got is, where can I go get 300 pages of really fun reading? So in case I do get that question, I'm going to ask it to Dr. Garza, where members of the public can find the detailed proposed budget to review, as is their right.
I'm glad you brought that up, Ben. All the materials that are presented to the board are on our website, but there's a lot of additional information on there as well. So beginning today, there's a 2-page document that is pretty straightforward that outlines the details of this budget, I think, that are pretty straightforward. So there's some wonderful tools that if you're interested in learning more about the budget, maybe you have others that you want to maybe get engaged. I think there's some information on our website that you might find very helpful and very useful. But everything is on our website. Lots and lots of materials, lots of information. We will begin getting budget questions from members of the school board, the public, and also from our Board of Supervisors. The answers to those questions will be also posted on our website. So thank you for asking that question.
Okay, Mrs. Schultz?
So I wanted to be mindful of the fact that we're a little bit supposed to be asking questions. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. So I can anticipate what's going to happen probably tomorrow morning and going forward. Was there a signaling at all to Ed Long and Sharon Bulova about what this was prior to today?
I have visited with Sharon Bulova, yes.
That it was going to be 6.7%?
I said it was going to be a high ask.
Okay. To Dr. Garza, I want to clarify.
And let me ask a question. We have followed the process that we've always followed. And in fact, I don't believe in previous budgets up to this point there was ever a notice to the Board of Supervisors prior to the superintendent suggesting the proposed budget. I don't believe that's ever happened in the past. I did make a courtesy call, but I don't know that that was expected from them or why it would be, because it's not happened in the past.
I'm just talking about the length of time via which we sort of had a signal from them. And I just wanted to know, is this a little bit of a surprise to them? Or
Oh, I'm sure it's a surprise to
okay.
them.
Okay, that's fair. And speaking of the word fair, I'd like to clarify something that you said during your presentation. You mentioned that the system isn't fair, and I just want to clarify because we have some new school board members, and we're trying to make sure that we're anticipating correctly what you said. I think I understood what you were saying in quote unquote the system not being fair, that you were referencing that we derive approximately 15% of our budget from the state funding mechanism, and that other school systems receive upwards of 50%. Now, basically when you're saying it's not fair, you're referencing the LCI, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And the fact there's got to be a greater share. I recognize we may never get the same amount that other school systems do, but to get only 15% to help us educate children in Fairfax County from the state.
I just wanted to be clear because there were a couple of, we were talking about the Virginia General Assembly, we were talking about the Board of Supervisors, we were talking about the governor, and I wanted to make sure that we were trying to figure out exactly what you were referencing. Is there any way with the budget that you've put together, and I don't know if this is you or Ms. Cohen or Ms. Michael, to even do a swag estimate on what the Board of Supervisors anticipate their budget to be, what that would translate with this budget as a tax increase? Is there any way for us to estimate that at this time, or is it too early?
We would have to anticipate that Ed Long's budget is comparable to what he presented a month or so, 2 months ago, and it may be very different. So I would be reticent to say what it would be. I will tell you that, because I think I know where you're going, a 1 cent tax increase, is that what that would translate into? I think it generates around
I'm just asking that if we
20 million.
assume Mr. Long's budget, that he's somewhat, projected to this point, along with this, and we marry those two together, I would think that we could do a straw man on what that would translate to in terms of a total budget, and then what that would mean for a tax increase. I would think that we would have.
I think there's some way to do the math on that. I will tell you that his proposed budget some months ago, and I think many of you were there for that, did anticipate almost a 6% increase in their budget. I don't know if that's going to be ultimately what their budget reflects, but that's what he presented to us about a month ago.
So it's fair to say that with his signaling on his side of the county's budget, which is roughly 47% of the budget, and ours historically has been approximately 53%, the marriage of those two together, this could potentially represent a pretty significant tax increase.
That would depend upon a lot of decisions on their part.
Okay. All right, that's fair. And are we anticipating, as a result of what we're doing, I heard some of my other colleagues reference the part of the process that goes along with this, that budget questions will begin. Are we anticipating providing any input the other direction in terms of how we believe something like this would be paid for, in terms of what we believe we're going to cut on the 47% on the county side, what we would suggest that they cut in order to pay for this? Or are we just going to kind of throw it over the fence and let them work it out?
In the past, budget questions can be submitted from school board members through the budget chair to Ed Long and his staff. So I think if there's suggestions or analysis or questions regarding the county's budget, we can certainly submit those, and we've done that in the past.
We haven't done it a lot, though, and certainly
Not as much as we could.
Not as much as we could, and certainly not proportionally to what we receive. So, you know, I guess that's my early signal to my colleagues, is if we're going to suggest a 6.7% budget, and historically the board or previous boards have not amended the superintendent's proposed budget, and I don't know whether, you know, we have about 2-3 weeks to get to whether or not we're going to amend anything in this budget, that there be some early signaling from members of this board to the board of supervisors on how we think we're going to pay for it, in terms of, are we going to support a tax increase? Are there things on the county side of the budget that we're going to balance this on? And, you know, I know that there's disappointment in the governor's education funding. You know, is that how we're going to resolve it? Are we going to take this down to Richmond? You know, what is going to be the main play for presenting a 6.7% increase in the budget, and how we're going to pay for it, and how we justify that with having 2,000 fewer students? So those are things I want to think of as we head into the next couple of weeks. I anticipate questions like that. I mean, I know there's a lot of excitement by, you know, bands and drums and whatnot, but the pragmatic side of it is this still has to be paid for, and I think there's going to be some very difficult questions incoming, and I think we have to be prepared for those questions.
Okay, Ms. Corbett-Sanders.
Thank you. And thank you, Karen, for your very well thought out presentation tonight. And I also will thank your staff, because I know this has been a Herculean effort to put this together. I am pleased that you actually put forth, as Megan puts it, a maintenance of effort budget, and did not go down that path towards dramatic cuts until we have a better idea of what we're going to get from the county and the state. But I would like to encourage everybody in this room to think about this budget in a different way. It's a way of thinking that is a values-based budget. And what we're doing today is really talking about the values of being a Virginia citizen. And in this state, we have a proud history of supporting public education that extends back to Thomas Jefferson. And drawing on that history, many of us in this room have excellent experiences and can attribute who we are today because of the value that this state has placed on education. And as a proud alumni of Fairfax County Schools and a parent of Fairfax County School alumni, I am very proud of that. And when we go back to values, I want to talk about whether or not we want to give a different value or place a different value on education for students of the future. And I'm not sure we do. As somebody who is passionate about our kids, I can tell you that I am passionate about ensuring that our future has kids as well educated and have the same opportunities for success that we have here. In our education system, we talk about collaborative learning teams. I look at the next few weeks and the next months as a period of collaboration. And we need collaboration between this board, the Board of Supervisors, and our delegation going south. And so I ask you that are here tonight to continue your support of our schools, encourage our legislators that are going to Richmond at the end of this or the middle of this month. So go and talk to them on Saturday, but also urge them to put in their budget amendments. Their budget amendments are due on the 15th of January. So please, action is needed now. And you have a calendar of events. Action is needed to work with us, to work with our supervisors, and to work with our legislators. So thank you, and I urge you to help us protect that value that this state has been built on.
Thank you. Okay, I'll maybe just close by also thanking Dr. Garza and thanking you also for including the community in this conversation from very early and in a very meaningful way. I think that's one of the reasons that we see the community here tonight. I think it's also because community members have, in a very grassroots way, organized themselves and in a very effective way. So it's exciting. I think one of the things that often keeps people home is this notion that we have to figure out how to pay for this, that we have to do the Board of Supervisors' job as well. And collaboration is important. We do need to work with them. But the reality is school boards in Virginia do not raise revenue for schools. We're not allowed to. You know, it's uncommon in the United States, but it's true in Virginia. So our job is to advocate for the schools. Our job is to describe for the community, with the community, what we want our school system to look like. And the job of our funders is to fund that, and that's not easy. I get it. You know, nobody wants to raise taxes, but that's the way it's set up in Virginia. So I think we do have to be transparent. We have to work with our funders as much as possible. But I don't want people to lose faith because it's complicated or because there are decisions, political decisions that have to be made by other people. We can really keep this simple. You know, we're not in a recession anymore. Recessions don't last 9 years, right? We're in a rebuilding time. And the way you rebuild is by reinvesting. And that's what we need to do here with our school system. This is a very hopeful budget, but only if we get funded. So I'm very heartened by all of you here tonight. You know, I get so tired of the sad budget talk that I have to give. I feel like sometimes PTAs in my district probably just remember me with sort of the sad, scowly face, because all I seem to ever talk about lately is, oh, we're making more cuts and we can't help it and this is the way it is. We're done with that. I mean, I'm just done with that. We're at a point where we can't do it anymore. Dr. Garza's right. I mean, you know, none of us ran for school board so we could preside over the dismantling of this wonderful school system. We're not going to do it. So this is a make or break year for FCPS. This is a time to turn the corner, and I think that this budget, if it is fully funded, will do that for us. Okay, so seeing no other comments, thank you very much. We will move on to the next item on our agenda, and that is item 4, action items. Item 4.01, confirmation of action taken in closed meeting. So yes, you all can go home now if you want to. We're not talking about the budget anymore. Thank you. This is the portion of the meeting where the board will confirm any action regarding issues that were discussed in the closed meeting. These issues may include action taken regarding student disciplinary matters. Board members have discussed each individual case and at this time may make several motions to confirm the recommended action. Mr. Moon, do I have a motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to excuse from attendance at school certain students identified in closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 22.1 254B1.
Second? Seconded by Ms. Evans. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. What's my next motion? M2. Ms. Corbett Sanders, do I have a motion?
Sorry. I move to grant in part the school reassignment appeal of a student who brought controlled substances to school and to modify the disciplinary decision of the division superintendent.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? We have McIlvain, Corbett Sanders, Evans, Moon, McLaughlin, Schultz, and Palchik. All those opposed? Derenak Kofax, Huff, Strauss, Hines, and Wolf. Sorry. And Wilson, I'm sorry, Wilson, I apologize. The motion passes. Ms. Strauss?
Thank you. I move to deny the school reassignment appeal of a student who possessed illegal drugs and drug paraphernalia at school and who was under the influence of illegal drugs at school, and to confirm the disciplinary decision of the division superintendent.
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Mrs. Schultz. All those in favor? Derenak Kofax, McIlvain, Huff, Strauss, Hines, Moon, Wilson, and Schultz, and Palchik. All those opposed? Corbett Sanders, Evans, and McLaughlin. The motion passes. Thank you. We will, for anyone interested, we will reconvene our closed meeting at the end of this regular business meeting to complete consideration of student discipline matters. Item 4.02, School Board Liaisons and Committee Assignments. I call on Mr. Moon for the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the school board confirm committee and liaison assignments as listed in the agenda item.
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McIlvain. All those in favor? Raise your hand, please. Okay. Derenak Kofax, McIlvain, Huff. It's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay, item 5, consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Some items listed have gone through board review, and documentation has been provided to all board members and the public in advance. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member prior to the meeting. 5.01, approve the minutes of December 3rd, 2015 regular school board meeting. Item 5.2 was to appoint individuals to serve on committees, but we have none of those tonight. Item 5.03, adopt policy 2220, admission of postgraduate students, policy 2475, commencement activities, and policy 8110, 5-year capital improvement program planning, as detailed in the agenda item. Is there any objection to approving the consent agenda? Hearing and seeing no objection, the consent agenda is approved. Item 6, new business. The following are new business agenda items. There will not be a vote tonight on these items, but action is scheduled at a future meeting. 6.01, the fiscal year 2017 proposed budget. 6.02, award of contract, running track replacement at Herndon High School. Award the contract for the running track replacement at Herndon High School to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and authorize the division superintendent or the assistant superintendent of facilities and transportation services to execute and administer the contract on behalf of the school board. Item 6.03, award of contract, running track replacement at Hayfield Secondary School. Award the contract for the running track replacement at Hayfield Secondary School to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and authorize the division superintendent or the assistant superintendent of facilities and transportation services to execute and administer the contract on behalf of the school board. Item 6.04, award of contract automatic temperature control system replacement at Irving Middle School. Award the contract for the automatic temperature control system replacement at Irving Middle School to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and authorize the division superintendent or the assistant superintendent of facilities and transportation services to execute and administer the contract on behalf of the school board. Item 7.01, superintendent matters. Dr. Garza?
I think I'll pass. I think you all have heard enough from me today. Because if you give me the mic much longer, I might preach some more. So.
Okay, thank you. 8.01, board committee reports. We have just one. Ms. Evans, to report on our CIP public hearing.
Yes, we had a public hearing here at Jackson Middle School earlier this week. There were 7 speakers, 4 of whom had signed up previously, and 3 who decided to speak in an impromptu manner. And we will be considering the CIP at the work session and then voting on it later this month.
Okay, thank you. Item 9.01, board matters, where board members may make brief comments. I begin with Ms. Derenak Kofax.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Just briefly, I alluded to this in my comments about the budget, that I will be having, attending various PTA meetings. I have one coming up next Tuesday at Springfield Estates PTA, where I will be meeting there and having a brief budget presentation and staying for the length of the PTA meeting. And then I have another one on January 19th at Edison High School. Both of those begin at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McElveen?
Happy New Year. Pass.
Ms. Huff?
I'll just say that I'm thankful to be here. I'm honored that I was elected to be in this position, and I look forward to working with my fellow board members, all of whom I've almost sat with everybody individually, and looking forward to work to serve you. And thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Welcome. Ms. Strauss?
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Okay. Ms. Corbett Sanders?
I want to once again thank the staff at West Potomac High School for the incredible welcome and atmosphere that they provided for today's budget presentation. I would also like to congratulate a number of students who have just recently been awarded Posse scholarships for college. One in particular is Sana Khan from West Potomac High School, and we also have Lynn Nugent from Robert E. Lee, and I'm going to let, as well as Preetpal Mataru from Lee High School as well, and we have a Jeb Stewart student, Sahib Kalsoom. So thank you.
Ms. Evans?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that I'm going to be meeting with a number of PTAs this month to talk about the budget and some other things as well. I'll be at Park Lawn this Saturday for their pancake breakfast. I'll be looking forward to that. On January 13th, I'll be speaking to the Glasgow PTA. January 19th, the Annandale High School PTSA, and January 20th, the Stewart PTSA. And I hope people will come out and give me their thoughts. And Happy New Year to everyone.
Mr. Moon?
Well, Happy New Year, Year of the Monkey.
Mr. Wilson?
I'd like just to echo the comments of Ms. Huff that received a warm welcome onto the board, and I thank everyone for all the kindness they've shown me since the new year. I look forward to working with all of you, and it sounds like we've got a lot of work to do. So Happy New Year.
Thank you. Ms. McLaughlin?
I just wanted to let my colleagues know that I'm going to be bringing some information to Chairman Hines and Ms. Evans about a community effort led by the America's Adopt a Soldier program. They've been working with Fairfax County Schools, in particular with our homeless student program, and in particular they are doing a working laptops and tablets drive, and they're looking to enlist the supervisors as well as the school board in trying to really help raise countywide awareness. And so I've been working with them on different ways to really help in that effort. So it'll be a drive that hopefully will collect up to 500 laptops and computers for homeless students here in Fairfax County and that attend our schools. So I wanted to just kind of put that on your radar screen that I'll work with them and find out the best way to get the information to our board, but I think it's really important that we look at this as an opportunity to partner with our supervisors and really do something to ensure that each and every child in Fairfax can be as prepared and given opportunities as much as possible to succeed. And Happy New Year to everybody.
Mrs. Schultz?
I would like to echo something I spoke with Dr. Lipp about. One of my ongoing year after year budget and otherwise concerns has been student health and mental wellness. Particularly evident to me as a mother of a FCPS senior this year, and the stress that students go through. And I think it's taken a couple of years for the culture change to begin to grow, but for the first time I heard I'm not going to say universally, but I heard with greater increase about the reduced stress in our students over the holiday break, and how it's being embraced more seriously by our administrators in our schools, by our teachers, and that the notion that the break that the students need is needed by the employees as well, and that wellness break, that health break for our teachers, for our educators, for the employees in our buildings, brings you back stronger, brings you back rested, and frankly, it has a fundamental shift. And I see it in employees, and I see it in students. And culture change is hard, and I know this was a hard one because we had been doing things systemically for a long time, but it's worth the payoff. And I'm very, very proud of some of the leaders, certainly Principal Eline, who I've highlighted before, writes a compelling email to his administrators, but it's one thing to write it, and it's another thing for the message to be received. And I'm proud of FCPS educators for taking it to heart and giving the students the break. And I think this is how we begin to teach a successive generation that you engage fully in what you need to do, but that you also look for and strike a balance, because ultimately that's how you're going to be successful in life. And I'm very pleased, Dr. Garza, and for the whole system, because we're going to continue to draw benefits as we create culture change like that, that's even when it's hard.
Thank you, Ms. Palchik.
I just want to, first of all, echo the thanks for the warm welcome from our school board members. I think we had a very productive retreat, and we've gotten off to a very strong foot. Also, the staff that works tirelessly to help us and support us and help us get started, thank you. To our community members, to our students, and to everyone engaged with the FCPS family. It feels good to be an official member of the family again, so thank you. That being said, I love community outreach, so I will be starting to visit schools, hoping to get to all of my schools this school year. I will start office hours soon, that will come out shortly, and I just want to say that I love to meet with members of the community, whether individually, as groups, PTAs, HOAs. I welcome all invitations, so please send them my way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will actually not adjourn yet because we have to finish our closed meeting. So we're going to make a motion to go back into closed meeting. The board will now make a motion to go into closed meeting to protect the privacy of individuals in personal matters not related to public business pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A4 of the Code of Virginia, and to discuss and consider disciplinary matters concerning students pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A2. Do I have a motion? Moved by Ms. Evans, seconded by Ms. Palchik. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you all. Good night.